Welcome to our Insight series on organizational well-being. Our question for this week is, what are the major needs and targets that employee wellness programs should address? Number 15. As we think about the major needs and targets that employee wellness programs should address, we are working on the first and major area of the framework for results-driven wellness. This is the logic structure that we recommend that you consider for your wellness program activities. We're going to look at the first area, the needs and targets, and essentially look down for each of these some suggestions so that you can get a better sense of what you might address in your employee wellness efforts. First of all, we want to underline and underscore the fact that the choice of the metrics that define needs and targets should be driven by your program goals. And to the extent that your program goals with your senior managers can be prioritized, all the better. We are considering also the Big 10 wellness topics, which we have already discussed. So when we think about those Big 10 items, we're generally thinking about the kinds of things that would help us with health risk or with other kinds of chronic illness prevention or other particular goals that the wellness program might have. Our specific health topics of interest may be gleaned from a population by a survey device, and we use what's called a wellness interest survey device to help identify what topics are of interest to the group that you're working with. Another one of the areas that you can think about is some diagnostic precursors to major health risk. So that can be things like hypertension, it can be high cholesterol levels, it can be elevated blood pressure, it can also be things like the increased levels of blood glucose. So there are some diagnostic precursors that we can potentially use. We also, when we think about health risk and we think about injury risk, we also have the injury precursors for major diagnostic category. That's an ICD, International Classification of Disease, 10th edition. We're now switching to the 11th edition, and that's a World Health Organization effort to bring clarity and accuracy to all diagnostic medicine that's provided. And it's related to the major diagnostic category on accidents and injuries, which is usually about 7 to 12% of all of the claims costs in a given health benefit program. Another one of the areas, if we look at chronic illness, can be the prevalence of major chronic illnesses and conditions. So we oftentimes can pick that up with a health risk assessment when we're asking for the current pattern of prevalence of specific illnesses and conditions. Another one of the areas and under disabilities can be the disability categories themselves, what the nature of the disability is, and also preventable precursors. So lack of seatbelt use may be a preventable precursor to an injury and disability, short-term disability from an automobile accident. So those are some of the areas of needs and targets that we can identify and focus on in our wellness efforts. Another area would be the absenteeism and emergency leave occurrence. And usually unscheduled leave is leave that is taken within 48 hours of being asked for. And that oftentimes represents our sick leave experience. We also can use medical leave incidents and causes as part of the Family Medical Leave Act, which is a federal law which helps us provide for those people that have specific medical problems in their family that keep them from working. Another one of the areas, it can be the health plan medical cost, and particularly the 22 or so major diagnostic categories that claims are usually adjudicated into. So those can be things like circulatory disease, neoplasms, back injury and back pain, issues of injury and accident, routine pregnancy. Those are all major diagnostic categories. So those are some of the areas where our medical costs can be essentially turned into metrics, which we then can monitor over time and work on to reduce. We also can have modifiable claims analyses, and that's where we take specific ICD codes that identify diagnoses and then see how many claims are in that particular major diagnostic category or specific diagnostic code, and then add those together. And that allows us to then monitor the range or the index of modifiable claims within all of our health claims and our health plan. We also can have workers' compensation categories of injury or incidents and patterns. So that's another area where we can identify specific metrics and then work on those metrics and observe changes over time. We can have disability insurance claims costs and patterns. So those are the short-term disability, long-term disability, and what pattern of claims and pattern of costs are involved. We also can have and identify presenteeism related issues, and that's where the individual comes to work, stays at work, but has an underlying health problem, and that health problem tends to reduce their productivity, and then we have ways of measuring that. We'll look more deeply at that at a later time. And there are finally some well-being and productivity survey results so that we can use specific questions in an instrument with a population that allows us to look at the level of perceived productivity that individuals have. And finally, we have some well-being survey results that we can in fact use and monitor over time. So again, in summary, these are all the different kinds of major needs and targets that employee wellness programs can address and perhaps should address based on their goals. But again, the goals are going to help us really determine which of these we are focused on. So in summary, the issues around this particular area are that there are many possible needs and targets that employee wellness programs can address. The program's goals are critical for determining the specific choices of issues and metrics that are the focus of our employee wellness program. So again, this represents a discussion of the first part of a 4-part logic structure for our wellness programs. And we start essentially with the needs and our choice of targets for specific issues within our employee wellness effort. Now, for more information on this topic, put the following search strings into your web browser: targets of employee wellness programs, issues employee wellness programs usually address, and goals of employee wellness programs. Next week, we will address the question, what is the program planning process used by the WellCert program? For more information, please visit our website at www.chapmaninstitute.com.